Hello and welcome to this lecture. Today we are going to discuss gastritis, and I'm going to present the case of a 73-year-old woman complained to her general practitioner of epigastric pain. Previously, her only problem have been osteoarthritis of the knees and hips, for which she takes ibuprofen. She had injection for some week. The pain began 4 days ago. It never eases even at night. Eating exacerbate, eating exacerbate it, especially spice food. Fats such as yogurt and milk help slightly. On examination, her mucous membrane slightly pale. The GP suggests that she might have acid reflux into her esophagus or possibly gastritis and prescribed her drugs, proton pump inhibitor. A later day, she represented with nausea, having vomited twice. On questioning, she said that vomits contain dark granular materials like coffee grounds. The GP referred her for an urgent endoscopic examination of her esophagus, stomach, and duodenum, which is performed that day on the emergency upper GI bleeds list in the local hospital. A 2 centimeter diameter gastric ulcer is noted, which is the main thing that we found, that they found a gastric ulcer at the incisura on the lesser curve. You can see the anatomy of the stomach, so you can find where the incisura stands. The endoscopist seal it using diathermy and glue. Several biopsies are taken from the ulcer edge. The patient asked why she has developed an ulcer. The doctor explained that anything which damages the stomach protective coating can allow acid or enzyme to attack it. For instance, she has been taking ibuprofen, which is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, which can damage the lining. The patient protests that she has taken ibuprofen for years without harm. The doctors tell that he has performed a urease test uh, on one biopsy to look on on Helicobacter pylori, another possible cause, and other biopsies to examine the microscopic examination to find the malignancies. So the learning objective for today's topic regarding the case is discuss different type of gastritis, what will be the pathogenesis of acute gastritis and acute peptic ulceration, discuss the morphological characteristics of acute gastritis and acute peptic ulceration, understand the clinical features of acute peptic ulceration, describe the key characteristic of chronic gastritis and autoimmune gastritis regarding their incidence, morphology, and clinical. So this is a long topic, and I need to cover in this video. So the main disorder of gastritis are acute or chronic or autoimmune gastritis. When we take a look of acute gastritis, it is a transient mucosal inflammatory process that may be asymptomatic or caused in a variable degree. So the main thing is that it is a transient mucosal inflammatory process with the clinical symptoms consist of epigastric pain, nausea, and vomiting. And what happened that in most severe cases, there will be the mucosal erosion, ulceration, hemorrhage, hematemesis, and melena formation, which is the rare case in severe condition. When we take a look of pathogenesis, we must need to know the histological characteristic that this is the outer layer is the mucus, this is the mucosa which secrete the mucus, and then we have some defensive muscularic mucosa that have some defensive mechanism, and we have submucosa. So the defensive force will be the surface mucus secretions, the bicarbonate secretion into the mucus, mucosal blood flow, then apical surface membrane transport, then we have epithelial regeneration capacity and elaboration of the prostaglandins. So what happens when injury occur? What will be the etiology? It may be because H. pylori, which I already discussed that patient will check for H. pylori, NSAIDs such as In our case, ibuprofen is NSAID, aspirin, smoking cigarettes, alcohol, gastric hyperacidity, duodenal gastric reflux. So these all are responsible to injury or insult to the mucosa. What happen after then? You can see that the mucosal layer, which is quite profound here, will get damaged. So if there is less mucosal secretion, though, it can injure the mucosal membrane, and that injury can impair the defense mechanism as well. And if the insult continues, then there will be ischemia, shock, delayed gastric emptying, and the host factors which is responsible for protective mechanism will be not available. And if the insult continues, it leads to the formation of ulcer, where you can see the U-type structure will be formed, and that U-type structure will show you that the mucosal damage, muscularic mucosa also damaged. There will be formation of necrotic debris, acute inflammatory cells like we know that neutrophils, macrophages. Then the formation of the granulation tissues also occur, and beneath the submucosa we have fibrosis occur. So again, this leads to pathogenesis. When we take a look of the morphological characteristics, the presence of neutrophils above basement membrane are the key characteristic. The lamina propria show only moderate edema with slight vascular congestion. Mucosal damage, I already mentioned that because of the acid secretions, it erode the mucosal membrane, and then leading to the formation of mucosal neutrophilic infiltration. Then purulent exudates will be found. When we take a look of acute peptic ulceration, it could be caused because of the therapy complication with non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, sometimes combined with the physiological stress. Stress ulcers occur in critically ill patients, especially with sepsis or shock. And if a person having sepsis, there will be more chance that infection persists for longer time. And if the infection persists for longer time, it can lead to stress ulcers, and then we have severe trauma. In that case also there will be chances to produce more ulceration. The ulceration could be curling ulcers, which is more associated on the proximal duodenum and associated with burns or trauma. Then we have Cushing ulcers, which is caused because of the intracranial disease and having high degree of perforation in that case. So what happened in the pathogenesis? The main thing is that it decreased the prostaglandin synthesis, and prostaglandin modulators. Prostaglandin is important to modulate the inflammation, and if there is decrease of the prostaglandin, then the mucosal repair become slow down, or there is a slowdown in the mucosal repair. Enhanced bicarbonate secretions and then increased vascular perfusion also occur. The second pathogenesis linked to gastric acid hypersecretion, and which could be occurred because of the intracranial injury. As we discussed in the previous slide, that in Cushing ulcer, there will be the cause is intracranial ulcer, which have high incidence of perforation. So with the help of, with intracranial injury, there will be increase of the gastric acid secretion, which caused by the vagal stimulation or direct stimulation of vagal nuclei. Then the other reasons should be the hypoxia and reduced blood flow, which is because of the stress-induced planktonic vasoconstriction. So these three are the main pathogenesis or reasons of the ulceration. Morphology, when we take a look on them, superficial epithelial damage occur. With time, it can change to deeper lesions. As I mentioned, that the U structure, where there will be mucosal damage and mucosal muscularis damage, the formation of granulation. So these all occur with time. So time is very important factor in the ulcers. Acute ulcers are round and typically are less than 1 centimeter in diameter. Then there are scarring and thickening of the blood vessels characterized in chronic ulcers are absent. Healing with complete reepithelialization occurs with days or week after injurious factors are removed. So again, if somebody is taking NSAIDs, we need to remove that stress. If somebody is taking smoking, we need to remove that stress. If the stress is physiological, we need to remove that stress. Again, if there is an increase of the intracranial pressure, we need to remove that stress. So there are different stresses, and we need to remove that stress so that patient get healed. Clinical features consist of nausea, vomiting, hematemesis. Other complication consist of perforation. The drug that has been using is proton pump inhibitors, or using histamine antagonist. What are these? We will discuss in our upcoming lectures in pharmacology. Maybe the blunt impact of stress ulceration. Actually, it is more important that how much impact that ulcer occur, how much the impact, it is deep or superficial. So superficial ulceration can be healed very quickly, but deep ulceration needs a lot of time to recover. And the most important thing we need to see for patient that what are the causative factors, what are the etiological factors or the condition lying to that disease. When we take a look of chronic gastritis, it is caused by because of the Helicobacter pylori, which is the microorganism. Less common cause contain radiation-induced or chronic bile reflux disease. Less severe but more persistent than those of acute gastritis. Again, we need to know the difference between acute and chronic. Then we have autoimmune gastritis. The most common cause of atrophic gastritis represent 10% cases of chronic gastritis and the most common form of chronic gastritis in patients without H. pylori. So it means either the chronic gastritis caused because of the H. pylori or it is caused because of the autoimmune gastritis or less other causes like radiation injury or chronic bile reflux disease. What is H. pylori? These are spiral-shaped or cup-shaped bacilli that are responsible for increasing the secretion and can lead to gastric cancer. Epidemiology explain the occurrence of chronic ulceration in poverty, people living in poor sanitary condition, householding crowding, limited education, more on African American or Mexican American ethnics, high prevalence area. Actually, infected often acquired in children and then persist for decades. So again, many people that are facing this problem, they don't know that they are having this problem until it get chronic, and then if the blood appear on the stool, then they go to do examination because the conditions, the living condition, are people living in the poverty, they don't have money to see the doctors, so they ignore the symptoms. Pathogenesis, four things linked again to H. pylori virulence, and actually the flagella that is present in H. pylori allow the bacteria to motile. It means the bacteria shape, it consists of a tail which is a flagella, and that allow the bacteria to move in viscous mucus, and then urease actually, which generate ammonia from the endogenous urea, elevating the local gastric pH around the organism and protecting the bacteria from acid pH of the stomach. So what actually doing that, the presence of the urea helps the bacteria to protect the acid from bacteria. Then the adhesion occur because if the bacteria motile, they move to the mucosa. The next stage will be they adhere to the surface, which is especially the surface foveolar cells, if you know the anatomy. And then what happened, the toxins such as cytotoxin associated gene A, which is known as CAGA, it is also involved in ulcer or cancer development with mechanism still not yet known. So what happened actually, that this is a picture of surface mucosal cell and that cover inside of the stomach, and it also consists of microvilli that is responsible for absorption of the nutrients. We all know that they contain mucus or mucin secretion granules. We know that the Golgi apparatus, nucleus, and mitochondria. So what happened that these bacteria will adhere to that surface mucosal cells or foveolar cells, and then they causing the damage to microvilli and other structures. When we take a look of morphology, there are variable number of neutrophils in the lamina propria. The superficial lamina propria include large number of plasma cells, often in clusters in sheet, as well as increased number of lymphocytes and macrophages will found. And then what happened that they will be the mucosa associated lymphoid tissues. Intestinal metaplasia occur contain presence of goblet cells and columnar absorptive cells. If you take a look of these pictures, the outer surface that these small rod-like structure, actually these rod-like structure showing you the presence of H. pylori, and actually if you zoom it, you can see it very clearly the presence of H. pylori. Then if you take a look on other B and C, we found the presence of inflammatory mediators such as macrophages, neutrophils, and lymphocytes. This is another picture, normal histological picture. And the normal histological picture, we know that the outer layer consists of the epithelium. Then we have inside muscularic mucosa. Then these round structures are showing you the presence of the blood vessels. Then we have lamina propria. So it means the first outer part is the epithelium. And what happened when ulcer occur, that they damage the epithelium, then they affect and damage the lamina propria. Then the lamina propria, then they affect, if the ulceration is deep, then they affect muscularic mucosa. And if, for example, the ulceration prevail more and more, then you see that the blood vessels will be there. Then if they affect the blood vessels, then again the bleeding occur, and then at later stage you found that bleeding inside your feces. So you can see that how ulceration is dangerous. So this is the normal histological pattern of the how the structure look like. When we take a look of clinical features, the test that we need to do is non-invasive serological test. We need to see the fecal bacterial detection and urea breath test and gastric biopsy. So there are a lot of options for the diagnostics. Why we do fecal bacterial detection? Because we need to see H. pylori. Why we do urea breath test? Because the high concentration of urea protect the H. pylori. Then why we doing the gastric biopsy specimen? Because we need to see that whether the ulceration is carcinoma or non-carcinoma, is malignant or not, or is how much extent it have. So we need to do a rapid urease test, bacterial culture, or polymerase chain reaction assay for the detection of H. pylori. So the treatment should be with the combination of antibiotic and proton pump inhibitors. Then the last type is autoimmune gastritis. So in autoimmune gastritis, what happened is it could be because of the following reasons. Number one is antibodies to parietal cells and intrinsic factors that can be detected in serum and gastric secretions. They will be the reduced serum pepsinogen 1 level, antral endocrine cell hyperplasia, vitamin B12 deficiencies leading to pernicious anemia and neurological changes, and impaired gastric secretion. So the main thing we need to understand, either there will be the formation of antibodies to parietal cells, or because of the intrinsic factors. The other reason, it could be the reduction of serum pepsinogen 1 level, or antral endocrine cell hyperplasia, or because of the vitamin B12 deficiency. As we know that autoimmune gastritis, or we can say autoimmune disease, autoimmune gastritis is just one disease, but if you talk about the syndrome, autoimmune syndrome, there will be chances of the vitamin B12 deficiency, and vitamin B12 deficiency can lead to autoimmune disease. And we mentioned that that deficiency can lead to pernicious anemia and neurological changes. then impaired gastric acid secretion such as achlorhydria. So these are the things. If, for example, I need to ask that how can we differentiate H. pylori associated gastritis and autoimmune gastritis, uh, the main thing that how can we identify? So my answer is the anatomical location is very important. H. pylori is usually occur in the antrum, whereas autoimmune is occur at the body. So the second thing that is very important is neutrophils will be present in H. pylori associated gastritis, where in autoimmune disease will be lymphocytes and macrophages. Then if we take a look of the other factors, uh, there will be the formation of antibodies to H. pylori in serology, especially H. pylori associated gastritis, whereas for autoimmune disease, there will be formation of antibodies to parietal cells. So that's the main difference. So this, in the next slide, I'm talking about the same thing. For H. pylori associated, inflammatory mediators are different, autoimmune have different, the location is different, the acid production is different. Then the gastric secretions are normal or normal to decrease, whereas is increase in autoimmune. Then hyperplastic and inflammatory polyps form, whereas it is a neuroendocrine hyperplasia because of the deficiency of vitamin B12. Then the antibodies to H. pylori in H. pylori associated gastritis, whereas it is linked to parietal cells. So you must need to know the difference between both of them. When we take a look of pathogenesis, the main thing is a loss to parietal cells. Why? Because it making antibodies to parietal cells. Then hypergastrinemia will be observed. Then hyperplasia of the antral gastrin producing G cells. So they are affecting the antral cells, especially of the G cells. And then there will be the pernicious anemia will be observed. Then reduced concentration of pepsinogen 1, and that loss of production of pepsinogen 1 is explaining the effect of the chief cell loss. So where the G cell stand, these cells stand at the antral G cells. This is the anatomical location, is slightly above the pancreas, because there are two type of G cells. One is the antral G cells and the other one is duodenal G cells, because the duodenal G cells in the duodenum, whereas antral G cells are present at the antral part of the stomach. So above, we can say slightly above to the stomach layer. So what happened? This is a physiology. You don't need to memorize it, but this is a normal physiological structure that when you eat the food, HCl will be produced, pH change occur, that stimulates the secretion of gastrin at the parietal cells, and then there will be production of HCl. This is a picture to understand the upper layer or the layers that are expressing in the red. The red zones are the parietal cells. These cells are the chief cells. Below them is the lamina propria, and then we have muscular mucosa. We already discussed in our previous histological slide that the parietal cells, then we have the chief cells, then we have lamina propria and muscular mucosa. So what happened when we see that? Again, this is another picture to explain the outer layer contain parietal cells, then we have chief cells, and then we have enteroendocrine cells. So this how the structure look like. Again, this is left side is explaining you lamina propria and muscular mucosa. So what is the microscopic characteristics? The morphological characteristics consist of damage of oxynetic cells, which is responsible for acid producing cells, and actinic mucosa of the body and fundus appear markedly thin. It means that they will become very thin and we can say fragile. Then the loss of the rugal fold. Then parietal and chief cell loss can be extensive. So a number of changes damage of the acid producing mucosas, then rugal fold which is lost, then the parietal cell and chief cell lost. This is the picture of gastric acid secretion, and I'm just revising the physiology. The upper part is known as octatic mucosa. This OM stand for, that is the part of fundus and body. The lower part is pyloric gland area, which is the antrum part, because this section is the antrum part. What are the cells inside? The cells we have, actually, the upper part contain gastric pits, the lower part contain gastric glands, that is responsible for secreting gastric secretions. We also have chief pepsinogen cells, which is very important for the secretion of pepsinogen. We also have G cells, which are the gastrin responsible secreting cells. And we also have the parietal cells, which is responsible for the secretion of hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. This is a normal physiology, that there are different cells and every cell have their different functions. And when we discuss the problems happening, that damage in autoimmune disease is a damage in the opneutic mucosa, that is the upper part of, we can say, the body and the fundus area, which is very thin. Then the folds are lost and the loss of the parietal and chief cells. So you can see in this picture where parietal cells are there and where the other cells, the cells that has been lost, chief cell loss. So you can see that this section, because loss of the intrinsic factor in parietal cell is responsible for autoimmune disease. So this is just a perfect example of the physiology of the stomach. You can take a look of them and revise your previous knowledge. The clinical features consist of autoimmune disease, and sometimes it is thought to be linked with HLA allele, but not specifically linked to which HLA allele. Slightly predominance in female. The median age at diagnosis is 60 years. So usually occur at old age. So this is also associated with autoimmune disease, but not linked to specific human leukocyte antigen HLA allele. So we are not known that which specific antigen allele are responsible, but it is thought to be an autoimmune disease, and it is caused because of the antibodies formation to parietal cells and intrinsic factors, as discussed before. So thank you so much for today's lecture. Hope to see you again.